Hey girl, hey, and welcome to the Self-Love Fix podcast, where we get relatable, we share tea, and we support each other on this journey of self-love, self-worth, personal development, self-esteem, and self-care. Because why wait until it's too late to start becoming the best version of ourselves? Let's start today. And I'm your host, Beatrice. So let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another week of the Self-Love Fix podcast. So this week, we're talking about codependency. And the reason why we're talking about codependency is because it pertains to self-love and self-worth in more ways than one. In short, codependency is a mix of lack of self-love combined with an addiction to people and an addiction to love, like receiving love from other people. So definitely do a Google search to learn more about it. It's not like it's an actual psychological diagnosis or anything like that. It just describes somebody who, is a people pleaser, is having a lot of difficulty loving themselves as a result of experiencing some kind of trauma. So that's the key part there, is experiencing some kind of trauma. So what I want to point is that codependency is on a spectrum. So before I get into the spectrum part, the opposite, most people would say the opposite of codependency is narcissism. So codependency is one extreme, narcissism is the other extreme. And a lot of us who are familiar with those terms tend to think of narcissists as being totally separate from codependence and codependence being totally separate from narcissists. But what it is that the two exist, I believe anyway, that the two exist on a spectrum when we think about the sense of self. One end of extreme is codependency. The other end of extreme is narcissism. But people who were given the chance to develop a healthy sense of self are right smack dab in the middle. And the reason I say this is because it's not like if you have a healthy sense of self, it's not like you don't have some of the aspects I'm going to talk about, 10 signs of codependency. It's not like you've never experienced them. It's that you experience them at a much lower, frequency than somebody who is codependent. Likewise, if you know somebody who's narcissist, it's not like you've never experienced anything that a narcissist experiences. It's just that you experience it at a much lower frequency. So you're just like, if you have a healthy sense of self, you're right there in the normal range type thing. And I also want to be clear, when I say narcissist, I'm not talking about people with diagnosed with the actual disorder, narcissistic personality disorder. I'm just talking about narcissistic trait. In this whole podcast, we're just talking about codependent traits and narcissistic traits, that kind of a thing, as opposed to like an actual diagnosis, or because that's getting into the psychological world. We're just talking about traits here. So let me give an example to make it a little clear. For example, one of the signs of being codependent is caring what other people think, right? But people who have a healthy sense of self, sometimes they might care what other people think. But when we're talking about codependence now, codependents have an extreme sort of reaction and response to what people might say about them or what people think about them, as opposed to somebody with a healthier sense of self. They might care, but it's not the same. That's what I mean by it exists on a spectrum. Okay. That being said, let's get into the top 10 signs that you may be codependent. Okay, so the first sign is having difficulty being single/staying alone. This is a huge theme in codependency. And actually, most codependent people don't recognize that they have trouble staying alone or being alone until it comes to actually being alone. So it's like when you're not in a relationship or when codependents aren't in a relationship for a long period of time, there's this sense of almost panic. There's a sense of just like, I have to be with someone. Let me just find someone, anyone. And also if you're codependent and let's say you have a group of people and you're just at a party or a gathering of sorts, and say you came with your friends, but your friends are, maybe going off talking to other people or being on their phone or something. If you're a codependent, you might have a difficult time doing your own thing or finding more people to talk to or things like that. It's just kind of this thing of like, let me cling on to like whoever's around and just stay near them. So again, number one was difficulty staying alone or not being in relationships. And then number two is people pleasing. And this one can go into so many different directions. So with people pleasing, it could be just having like unwavering loyalty to people who literally don't even treat you well. They may not show up for you in the way that you hope that they would show up for you, but you show up for them the way that you would hope that they would show up for you. And you just, for whatever reason, you feel like you have to do it. And you feel like you need to, even though you know they're no good for you or they don't treat you well, like you feel like you just need to stick by them. Like you just have this loyalty to them. This goes to for relationships. If you're a codependent, you'll find that you end up in relationships with the very people that you know are just not what you envisioned or what you wanted, but you can't seem to leave the situation. You just feel sort of like you're stuck and you feel like you can make it better. You feel like it's, if you act the way that they want you to act, if you just give in, that they'll stick by you and they'll become who you want them to become. And then, of course, there's just that thing of when it comes to people pleasing, you just say yes when you mean no and no when you mean yes, because you kind of get this inkling, like this feeling that, oh my gosh, if I say yes or if I say no, I can tell that they're going to be upset with me. So I'm just going to say yes, even though I don't want to, or I'm going to say no, even though I don't want to, because I can tell, like I have some kind of like inner sense that if I don't, or if I do, they're going to be upset with me. So to you, if you're a codependent, it makes more sense to kind of neglect your own feelings and your own desires because you hold that person's views or what they want on a higher pedestal than you do your own. Okay, so number 3 is that you are highly empathic. So if you don't know what empathic means, or I should say highly sensitive person, that's probably the term that's more used is the highly sensitive person as opposed to empathic. Empath, if you don't know what that means, I think that comes from the word empathetic. But when we say empath, I think it's more of a spiritual term. It just means somebody who's able to feel other people's feelings. That's the short definition. And then highly sensitive person, I think it's a term that Dr. Elaine and Aaron came up with. She wrote the book, The Highly Sensitive Person. It's a good book if you're interested in learning more about what it means to be a highly sensitive person. But in short, it just means somebody who is highly attuned to what other people are feeling, to the point where you can tell when somebody needs a blanket, when somebody needs AC turned down. You're just highly tuned into what other people need, to the point where you are asking them before they ask you, kind of a thing. You might even pride yourself with this. A lot of codependents do that. They pride themselves with knowing exactly what other people need and when they need it. And sometimes it's not even what other people need and when they need it. It's just how they're feeling. Like a lot of codependents can tell when somebody is upset, even though they're not expressing verbally that they're upset, or that they're happy. I think everybody can tell when somebody's happy, but I just mean when the mood changes. A lot of codependents are super sensitive to when somebody's mood changes. So it's like you could be talking to somebody and then their mood switches and they have you feel like they're angry. They're not telling you that they're angry, but you feel like they are. You might, if you're a codependent, say like, are you okay? Is everything okay? Like, are you upset? And so it's that kind of a thing, just being able to tell really just shifts in energy. I personally feel like it's just being able to tell shifts in energy. The only problem is when it comes to being codependent, a lot of times there's difficulty in regulating that, difficulty like being able to still be okay while experiencing that somebody else has a change or shift in their mood, which leads me to my next point, number 4, for how to tell if you may be codependent. And again, the last one was being highly empathic or a highly sensitive person. So this one is that your moods depend upon your environment. And that's just piggybacking off of the last one, because again, when you're codependent, like people around you are not happy, you're not happy. If they change from being happy to being upset, you start to feel panicky. You start to feel just like, what's going on? You could have been really happy and then out of nowhere now you're really upset. almost like a mark of a codependent, I would say, is having difficulty just having your own mood and your own energy and sticking with it, even though other people's around you changes. Okay. And then number 5, which actually I think piggybacks off this one too, is feeling responsible for other people's feelings, which I also did a podcast on this about, I think it's 2 episodes back now. If you're codependent and you feel like your mood shifts when other people's moods shift, you'll also feel responsible for that shift. So if you're chatting with someone, everything's good, hunky-dory, and out of nowhere they get upset, maybe they feel some type of way because of something you said, again, not your fault, but they are just upset about it, and they don't communicate to you about that, but they just have a change in mood, you're going to feel like, oh, it's something I said. Oh no, it's something I did. So there's this overthinking that goes on in your head, and you're just like trying to figure out how you can make it better because you're noticing there's a change in somebody else's mood, and you're like, okay, I have to do something to make it better, to make them feel better. This is my responsibility, right? You may even get to the place where you like regret things you've said or things you've done, even though it's what you believe or it's what you think and feel. You might get to the place where you regret it and you take it back because you feel like it's your duty to make somebody else feel better if they're not happy with it, like visibly, like if their mood shifts. Again, they're most likely not even communicating it to you, but even if they do communicate it to you, you still feel like, oh, it's my fault. Like I have to do something to make it better. Okay, so number 6, the next one is a biggie. This one is apologizing frequently, even and especially if someone else did something wrong. So this kind of ties in to feeling responsible for other people's feelings. So if you're codependent, you likely have very big fear that if you don't apologize to someone, even if they did something wrong, like if they're threatening to like no longer be your friend or your partner or something like that, you feel like you have to apologize because you're afraid they're going to leave you. And even if you know that like they did something, I don't want to say they did something wrong, but you weren't in the wrong, you're going to feel like you need to apologize. Because in your mind, your thing is like, I don't care if I have to apologize as long as it fixes it. I need to fix this. That's like the main mindset of a codependent is I have to fix things. So whether I have to apologize, even if I don't get my side of the story heard, I'm going to apologize because I need to fix this. That's really where the over apologizing comes from. And it could even just look like somebody bumps into you and you say sorry, or you're starting off conversations by saying sorry when you want to speak. It's like, sorry, I just have to say this, or this constant need to apologize, like as if what you have to say or what you're bringing up isn't okay and that you have to make an excuse for it, you have to modify it. That's like a really big, when you're codependent, you're more concerned with, again, like I said earlier, it's almost like an addiction to love, receiving love from other people, or addiction to people. It's like you need people around you to be okay, to feel okay. So number 7 is having guilt and shame. So this could look like internally having guilt and shame. You know, when other people have things to say about you, just your internal dialogue looks like, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Oh my gosh, like they're right. I'm this, I'm that. It's just a lot of negative self-talk, and then shaming yourself the way that somebody else shames you. So a lot of what being codependent looks like is viewing yourself through the lens of other people as opposed to having your own view of yourself. So if somebody says that you're annoying, you think you're annoying. If somebody says that you are not good with your money, you're like, I'm not good with my money. You don't really have that sort of baseline view of yourself, basically. So everything you think about yourself comes from other people, especially when it comes to guilt and shame. You readily take the guilt and shame on. It gets to the point where you could know that you aren't what somebody else says that you are, but because you hold somebody else's opinion much higher than your own, it might sit in your brain and you'll sit on it like, you know what, maybe they're right. Maybe I am a little annoying. What about that time when I did this, that, or the third? Maybe that was annoying. Oh, I guess I am. Like, it's that kind of a thing. It's really just holding somebody else's opinion higher than your own and then taking on that guilt and shame. So number 8 is actually going to be being really reactive, or I should just say being reactive. And this kind of piggybacks, I think everything is piggybacking off of each other, but this piggybacks off of the guilt and shame. So what happens is when we feel guilt or shame, when we're codependents, we react one of two ways. We either don't react externally and we react internally with a bunch of negative self-talk, and we kind of shut down with other people, maybe cry, shed a couple tears because you're just like, your feelings are hurt, or you're gonna be reactive. Most codependents at some point get reactive. That means if somebody says you're annoying, you're gonna be like, I don't know what you're talking about. No, I'm not. And then you're gonna try to convince this person why you're not annoying, and you just like lash out. Or if somebody says like, you overthink too much, you lash out. That was something that actually happened to me. A group of my friends were trying to tell me, like, they weren't even saying it in a mean way. They were just like, I think you really overthink things. Like, they weren't trying to criticize me. They were just really pointing out something. But at the time I was super, super codependent, and I took it so personally. I like lashed out at them. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is how I am. This is who I am. You should accept me how I am, kind of a thing. And they were just like, well, we're never, ever bringing that up to you again. Okay. Moving along. But it's like that thing of like the need to protect yourself, the need to protect. Really what it is the ego. When it comes to codependency, the ego is underdeveloped. So when we're talking about narcissism, the opposite of codependency, the ego is overdeveloped. So when your ego is underdeveloped, it can cause you to just kind of also react, because we know narcissists, right? They react outlandish like that. They're super reactive. But if you're familiar with narcissists, but codependents can do the same thing too, because it's an attempt to try and mend together and fix the ego that they barely have formed, really is what it comes down to. The reactivity might even come along, and it especially comes along when it comes to belief systems or values, things like that. If somebody doesn't share a belief system with you or a value with you, you might lash out at them. Like, it could literally be something like somebody with a different political party, and I know that's a sensitive topic, we're not going to get there. We're not going to go there. We're just not, because everybody has different political views, whether it's environment, when it comes to the environment, or it comes to money or things like that, right? Let's just go there. So like, if you have a certain view about money and how it works in the economy, and you stand by that, if you come in contact with somebody who has a completely different view of that, and they express that to you, you might get really reactive, and you might get upset because you feel like when they're disagreeing with your belief or your view of politics, they're disagreeing with you. That's what you feel like. You feel like it's a personal attack. So that's a super codependent thing. I'm not saying like that they're right and you're wrong or anything like that. I'm just saying that like somebody who has a healthy sense of self, they'd be able to be like, I don't agree with you, but okay, I can see that, I can honor that you have your own view. Like, you have your own view about how money works in this economy. Whereas if you're codependent, it's like, rah, 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 like, I'm right, you're wrong. How dare you think money should be spent this way in the economy, and that kind of a thing. So it's just like, you really take it personal because, again, you feel like that person's attacking you. Again, codependency is an underdeveloped, or being codependent means you have an underdeveloped ego. So you're trying to hold on to whatever little ego that you have. Okay, so being reactive was 8. And then for number 9, it's wanting to be liked above everything. It means, again, that can mean staying in toxic relationships because you want so badly. Like, you just want to be seen. You just want to be heard. Codependents, a lot of times, were not seen and heard in their childhood. So if they get any bit of attention, whether it's, from a toxic person or from whoever, it's just, you want to hang on to that as much as possible, because having been starved really of being shown attention and affection while you were growing up. So being well liked is important to you. If you're a codependent, you might even notice, you might think that if maybe your friends aren't talking to you as much as they normally do, or your partner isn't hitting you up, I don't know how often, as much as they normally do, you might feel like, oh my gosh, they're pulling away. They're going to leave me. They don't like me anymore. I've done something. There's just this constant fear of people not liking you, and coupled with, what can I do to keep people liking me? So there's really just this, I don't want to say obsession, but it's a big priority for codependents to be well liked. And it's a lot of codependents put their energy towards trying to be well liked, whether that looks like adopting opinions that other people that they admire, whether it looks like downplaying their own views, beliefs, or ways of looking at things so that other people can like them. That's really what it comes down to. That's what codependents care about. And if you're codependent, you might even notice like it's important to you to be friends with people who are well liked or maybe even well known, because you want to be around that energy. Because really your hope is that if you're around people like that, then people will like you too, just like the way they like them. So it's really just an outward focus on other people and do they like me? Do they care about me? Kind of a thing. Okay, and now we finally made it to number 10 of the 10 signs that you may be codependent. So the 10th one is trouble identifying and communicating feelings. So if you're codependent, you may find that if somebody asks you, what do you want? Or what are you feeling right now? You might not know. You may think you can explain it, but when it comes to actually like expressing it verbally, you may feel stumped. You're just like, oh my God, what do I feel? Like say you're in a relationship with somebody and you're realizing you're upset. Like most codependents know when they're upset, they know when they're ticked off. They don't know exactly how to express that to someone, or they don't know exactly where it's coming from. So you might find that you're in a relationship and you get upset with your partner. Like when it comes down to actually explaining what it is that's bothering you, you might draw a blank. You really might draw a blank because you're not exactly sure. You just know that you're upset, but you don't know how to express that. That's a huge thing with codependency. Usually the reason for not knowing how to express why you're upset when it comes to being codependent is because of fear of what is going to happen if you actually express it, coupled with not being shown when you were growing up how to identify how you feel, or having your feelings dismissed. So if your feelings are repeatedly dismissed, or you weren't actually shown how to know what you feel or how to be in touch with your feelings, you're just going to be like, what's going on? Like, I feel in my body that I feel angry, but well, I don't know what to do with it, or I don't know how to express it. And on top of that, most codependents don't usually have a range of emotions. It's usually just you're really, really angry, or you're maybe content, or you're happy, but like it's not really distinguished. I guess distinguished emotions like feeling uncomfortable, feeling joyful, feeling elated, having those kind of like specific verbs, specific adjectives to describe how you feel. Most codependents would have trouble using specific adjectives. They might just know that they're either angry or not angry, or that they feel content or they're fine, they're not bothered. It's just, again, that's because of not having that sort of upbringing where you learn that there's, it's okay to have a range of emotions. That's usually the reason why codependents are just stumped when it comes to identifying feelings and then communicating them. Like I remember for myself, like I once had this boss, I think when I was like working at Gamba Juice or something, like way back in my college days. I'm saying way back like it was a long time ago. It really wasn't a long time ago. But my manager asked like, are you okay with going over all these training lessons today, or do you want to go over them tomorrow, kind of a thing? And I remember just thinking to myself, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Am I okay with going over it all now? Like, am I, or would I instead want to go over it tomorrow? I mean, that is what being codependent is. It's like literally somebody's just asking you, how do you feel about doing this task? And you're like, I don't know. How do I feel about doing this task? You could sit there, if you're a true codependent, you could sit there for 5 minutes if they let you, just wondering, I don't know, because you don't know how you feel, because you're not tuned in to how you feel. And again, it's not your fault. This is like a thing that happens with your upbringing. If your feelings are dismissed over and over again, or nobody's accounting for your feelings or helping you navigate them, you're not going to know what to do with them or how to process them, kind of a thing. There is hope though. There is hope. Because like I said, I was the type of person who couldn't be able to tell if she wanted to do some extra training lessons or whatever at work one day or pick it up the next day. Like I went from that to now, like at my current job, it's really easy for me to make those kind of decisions. Like I'll have one of my managers maybe ask me like, oh, would you prefer to do go through this task today or tomorrow, or how do you feel about doing this? And now because I'm more in tune with myself, I'm able to just be like, oh no, I'd rather do that tomorrow. I'll get it done tomorrow, kind of a thing, without thinking twice about it. There is hope. Like, I want to make that clear. I think with being codependent, there's just this thing or fear of just like, am I going to be like this forever? Or this thought like, I'm never going to get better. I'm never going to improve. But you will. You can. It's very possible. If I did it, you can do it. If I did it, you can do it. If only you knew who I used to be, kind of a thing. And I try to give glimpses every now and again, but if I can do it, you can do it. So if you went through all of these different signs, and again, I'll go over them. So the first one was difficulty staying alone or being out of relationships. Second one was people pleasing. Third one was being highly empathic or a highly sensitive person. Fourth one was your mood is dependent upon your environment or changes as your environment changes or as other people's moods change. And number 5 was feeling responsible for other people's feelings. And number 6 was apologizing frequently, even and especially if someone else did something wrong. Number 7 was having guilt and shame. Number 8 was reactivity or being really reactive to other people. Number 9 was wanting to be liked above everything. And number 10 was trouble identifying and communicating feelings. So if you find yourself with the majority of these or all of them and you're thinking, oh, I may actually just be codependent, what do I do now? Yeah, you're in good company, because this was me not too long ago. This was also me not too long ago. I was like, what? Me? Codependent? This is great because I figured it out, like what's been wrong or what was going on with me, but also where do I go from here, right? So first, just take a deep breath. It's all okay. There's no rush. I always say learning to love yourself is a journey for a reason, because it takes time. These things do take time. So remember that first thing. Second, I would say meditation. Definitely try meditation. I say this all the time, but it really does help with healing like the inner child. So, and getting to know what exactly is going on, like in your subconscious mind, really, which is where all of these things that you learned about being codependent lie. So I would definitely do meditation. And then thirdly, I always say this, journal. I would journal just the things that you notice, like everything I've went through in this podcast. Like I would maybe journal how it applies to you, like how each one of the signs, I guess, how you've seen it in your life, and just kind of really just writing it down and having that awareness helps a lot. It's like I would say it's the first step, is just being aware of how this applies in your own life and just thinking, oh, wait, maybe I do people please. I notice that I always do X, Y, and Z. But I would just say do it from a non-judgmental point of view. Don't be like, oh, I'm such a people pleaser, I'm so annoying. Just more like, be like, oh, okay, you know what? I do sometimes people please, and I've done it in this way. Just like a neutral. Do it all neutrally. Don't give yourself any more shame. And lastly, I would say definitely talk to someone about this. I know with me, there was no way I could have done this if I didn't have like a therapist and I had like a life coach as well. Like there's no way I could have done it. I needed to have somebody to talk to be able to talk back to me and help affirm and validate what I was going through, at the same time give me some sort of help, some sort of guidance, some sort of direction, because I didn't have it on my own. That's the thing. I was never, again, like as somebody who was codependent, like I never knew where, like I just didn't have the tools. And I believe that we all have the tools within us to be able to navigate this life. But sometimes we need some help to awaken us to that. That's what I mean, is I needed somebody to point me in that direction to how can I pull this out of myself. So that is what I would recommend if you're finding that maybe you are codependent, or you have some of the codependent traits, I should say. Thank you again. Thank you for tuning in, and I will catch you next time.